So your business pretty much 5x'd since the
Pretty
time that
much
you
five.
gone on to
Yeah.
Bambi?
I went from anywhere doing maybe 10 to 15 patients, members a day, to now I'm doing about 50 to 60.
Welcome back to NEMT Experts. I've got Jesse Shanker with me, who is the owner of NorCal Transit, which is in Northern California. Jesse, how you doing?
Nice to meet you, man. Doing good.
Thanks for being with me.
Yeah.
Jesse, you have been operating your NEMT business for a little while now. How long has it been?
About 3 years.
3 years. Okay. And in that time, you've been growing your variety of clientele, a number of different brokers who operate throughout California you work with. Can you just give us a bit of background about yourself and how you got into NEMT?
Yeah, so how I originally got into this was I was at a care home, and I spotted a company that was giving, an elderly lady a ride, and it kind of piqued my interest. And I asked, I asked them about it, and I became, I was already in the transportation business, so, I started from there.
Okay.
Mhm.
And you gave that elderly lady a ride and you said,
Well,
hey, let me.
yeah, yeah. So how that worked was it was a company, and the guy had owned it, and I just kind of spoke to him about it briefly, and he was just telling me how big the demand is, for NEMT, and so that's how I initially got in.
Okay.
Mhm.
And you started your own business.
Yeah.
How did you start out? Like, who were you doing trips for?
So pretty much it was for this it was a care home that I started doing trips for, and I was working with them directly, getting business from them. And then I started to branch out, and I, worked with then I started to find out about certain brokers. And the more I found out, the more I knew how much the demand was for it.
And when you started doing NEMT, did you just
Mhm.
plunge into it full time or was it part time at start and then you
It was
ramped up?
I would say it was part-time at first.
Okay.
It was part-time. I was having a little bit trouble just finding a lot of business in the area. So, but then once, I went full-time into it, that's when I got really busy.
Okay. And when did you decide to go full time? Like, what was the trigger point for you?
When I seen how high the demands were, and when I started to reach out to care homes and hospitals and, doctor's offices, and then I started to see how high the demand was for this, and that's when I went full time.
Okay. And tell me this, like these care homes and hospitals that you
Mhm.
started seeing demand from, like, how were those facilities getting their transports done before you came into the picture?
They were so a lot of them were having a trouble with transportation. I mean, a lot of them had in-house transportation that they would do it initially from. Um, But yeah, they would. I kind of gave them the idea, like, hey, how would it work if I did the transportation for you guys? And initially, that's how I started it, and I started working with them directly, and yeah, that's how I got into it. But a lot of them was in house.
Okay. And
Yeah,
now a lot of them have just sort of given up their in-house because
yeah, yeah,
your NEMT business
yep,
is taking over all that.
yep, yep.
Can you talk to me about the journey from 3 years ago up until now? Like
Mhm.
you started working with care homes, with hospitals. How has that sort of changed over the 3 years? Like the different
Uh,
sources of interest in the mix?
yeah, yeah, yeah. So now it's more. I work directly with insurance companies. And now the insurance companies are calling me rather than the care homes and all the individual businesses. So I'm just directly with insurance companies, and now the volume has just tenfold increased.
How did you get in with insurance companies?
So I just started to pretty much do some research on how I could make my business grow. And when I started to talk to the care homes, they said, hey, that we're dealing with insurance companies. So I just decided, hey, let me reach out to them directly, and see if I could work something out.
Okay. And was that an
Mhm.
easy process when you reached out to the insurance companies to get in with them or?
It's a lengthy process. There's a lot of ups and downs that you have to go through with dealing with them. but nevertheless, it's just pretty much dealing with them. It's just a lot of it's just who you get to talk to, who you know, and if you get the right person to talk to, and they help you out with all those steps.
Okay. So like
Hmm.
a lot of hustling in the beginning, going into
Lot.
different hospitals and care facilities,
Hmm.
then hustling to say, okay, insurance, let me go
Yeah.
directly to them, going through their
Yeah.
process. Um, like over the 3 years, what would you say have been like the most difficult parts of growing the business and the things that have moved the needle most for you?
So the most difficult part was first finding out if I needed, if I was gonna do more gurney work or ambulatory or wheelchair, So just finding out the demand for each of those. And once you find out that in your area, if wheelchairs needed more, and then after that, it's just find the right equipment. Then obviously find the business, but it's basically the parts where I had a lot of trouble was just finding what your demand is for what and how much is needed.
And what did you sort of land on? Like in your area, what is needed more?
So with mine is I found with mine wheelchairs heavily demand, the big demand here. So and gurney work is a lot.
Okay, so you
Yeah.
focus on wheelchair and gurney or
Gurney.
stretcher.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And now you work with a number of different brokers who operate
Hmm.
in California.
Yeah.
Like a lot of the major ones. If you can just
Yeah.
share a bit about like who all you work with.
Yeah. So the biggest one that I work with is partnership, which is a healthcare plan in this area. And a lot of people in my area have that, and they're big in the Northern California region. So that was probably by far the biggest one to pretty much move the needle in my business.
Okay. And if you can share about, how's your experience been with Partnership Health Plan here in NorCal?
They've been actually, they've been really good. So they are the ones who actually told me about your company. Before that was pretty much just manually doing a lot of the dispatching. So, trying to figure out the time slot, like, hey, if I'm picking up somebody at 8 o'clock and they're done at 11, well, how am I going to squeeze in the 10 a.m. appointment? So it was a lot of manual dispatching.
Okay. So before you were using Bambi, you weren't using any software.
No.
Okay. Um, yeah, I mean, how has that moved the needle for you? Like, automating your scheduling, dispatching, but in general.
So pretty much what happened, funny story about that. So what happened was when I was doing it just, manually how I was, and then I switched over, I started to see my volume increase because I can, take in more patients. So it actually helped out a lot. Increase
Okay.
my
Can you share
volume.
some
Yeah.
numbers about like how much your volume increased
Oh
after
yeah. Yeah.
Bambi?
So I went from anywhere doing maybe 10 to 15 patients, members a day, to now I'm doing about 50 to 60.
Okay.
Yeah.
So your business pretty much 5x'd since the
Pretty
time that
much five.
you got onto
Yeah.
Bambi.
Yeah.
That is a big number.
Oh yeah, it's amazing because um, Bambi helps out with all the time utilizations and makes everything more straightforward. So it's helped out in a lot of ways.
So how are you able to handle that sharp increase in the number of trips? Like you brought on more drivers, more
Yep,
vehicles?
yep, more drivers and more vehicles. Yes.
Okay, and you just immediately brought that on as the trip volume spiked?
Yeah. So pretty much as I seen demand go up, and then you can kind of see how many trips you have, and the more I seen, the more people I brought on, and the partnership, it's integrated with them, so they get to see like, okay, he has this many trips, and now they just keep sending more, and they see if I can handle, let's just say I'm doing 50 trips a day, then they might spike it up a little bit because they get to see since it's integrated with them.
Okay,
Yeah.
nice. Um, where do you go from here?
Um, well, from here it's just pretty much I'm trying to scale to, where I'm pretty much the biggest company in my area. So that's what I'm trying to do.
Okay.
Yeah.
And is that happening anytime soon?
Hopefully we'll see. I'm trying to do it slowly. I'm trying to work a lot on my customer service and, just figuring out the small details of the business. And yeah, from there, I could see maybe in a year,
Okay.
in about a year. Yeah.
Nice. So in a year, you're the biggest NEMT business in your particular area
Yeah.
in Northern California.
Yeah.
A lot of that trip volume that increased was because Bambi was integrated with Partnership Health, and they're able to sort of
Yeah.
see that, hey, you're able to handle more, they send you more, and that's been
Mhm.
like one of the big growth drivers for you over the past several months since you switched
And
over.
Nirav, another thing is that they pretty much get to see like if I once I assign the driver the trip, so they get to see like I've done that, and they can add on more, or, give less. So yeah, it's really helped out a lot.
Okay, nice. So like being able to give them all that real-time data and visibility,
Hmm.
so they
Hmm.
can give you more.
Yeah.
Uh, nice. What's your secret sauce? Aside from
Um.
what you've shared with us for,
Mhm.
being able to grow over these past 3 years and, have this goal of being the biggest in 1 year in
Yeah.
your area.
Pretty much is writing the right employers. So I think I would say that's and having customer service, that's definitely a go-to.
So when you say getting the right employers, you mean getting the right people who are sending
Yeah.
you trips to do.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, that as well. Yeah. So I would say, and this is actually is having the right dispatching software for sure, because that will increase it, and a software such as yours, it makes it very straightforward, whereas some I've seen, I've looked at them and they're just too complicated. Yeah.
I feel you there.
Yeah, yes.
Tell me about some of the other work you do, like outside of, like Partnership Health Plan is your big
Hmm.
one. You work with other brokers, you still work with hospitals and facilities.
Yeah.
Has that work grown for you over time as well?
Yes, that work has grown. Is I do trips for them, but definitely I would say it has increased a little bit, but not too much. But I would say partnership is definitely the main one.
Okay. And
Yeah.
Jesse, to the extent that you're willing to share, can you tell us
Hmm.
some numbers about your business? Like how many vehicles do you operate with now? How many do you plan to grow to over the next year? Any like sort of revenue numbers you can share with us?
Yeah,
Whatever
yeah. So pretty much, right now I just have about 5 vehicles, and I'm planning to grow to 10 here shortly. And as far as revenues, I haven't really looked at this year's, because I just got in with the bigger insurance companies. So this is probably my first year where I'm doing a decent amount of numbers, whereas before I wasn't doing too much. So yeah.
Okay.
Hmm.
And I mean, this has like been full time for you for a few years now.
Yeah.
No end in sight. You're growing this
No.
business. You're
Hmm.
dominating your area,
Yeah.
and that's it.
Yep.
Okay.
Hopefully that's where I'm projecting it to go.
Um, can you share some interesting or fun story of any time over the past 3 years of
Oh
you running
man.
your business? And I know in NEMT, there's tons of wild stories. I'm sure you
Yeah,
have.
yeah. Yeah. Let's see. So I have had times where I mean, a lot of stuff when I started, I was doing the trips myself. And I did a gurney trip one time where I was taking a patient. I mean, I wouldn't say it was more scary, but so I picked the patient up and then I took them to their appointment. And for some reason, I didn't at this time I kind of knew I thought I knew what I was doing, but I really didn't. So with the gurney, there's a lot of little things where you can mess up. But yeah, so pretty much, I had it to where I had to pick the patient up, and as I was taking him out of the van, it wouldn't unlatch, to where I can drop the wheels. So pretty much, yeah, I had to sit there for about 20 minutes just holding a patient on all their dead weight, for about 20 minutes, just unexperienced. So, you have to know every little thing before you get into the business, how everything works to the fullest extent.
And how did you learn a lot of what you learned? Was it just through trial and error? Was there any
Trial and error,
resources
yeah.
you had, or?
Well, a lot of the stuff I learned was I try to do some like on YouTube, try to see how certain things work, like how the wheelchair ramp works. So a lot of the stuff is just through YouTube and just research and yeah, trial and error.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any advice you have to budding NEMT entrepreneurs who want to have the kind of trajectory that you've had?
Just make sure you do the trips and stuff yourself, so every little facet and every little detail of how everything works. Um, Make sure you always have a very good dispatching software, because I learned the hard way, right? And yeah, just got to be a very efficient, because people do have to make it to their doctor's appointments on time, so efficiency is key.
Absolutely. And
Mhm.
speaking of which, I'll let you get back to it since you're managing
Thank you.
dispatch operations.
Yep.
Jesse,
Yep.
thank you so much for sharing your story.
Run, Bambi, run.
Awesome.
All right, man.
Thanks.
Thank you, man.